What is up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of First and 12 Ounces. Booda, let us know who we are.
What's up, guys? So it's first and 12 ounces. It's Booda and Pete. If you're looking for ESPN, you came to the wrong spot. We're just here to talk a little ball, a little LSU, a little Texas, a little bit of everything. College football season's here. Let's get it rolling. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Week 0 is upon us. Week 0 is kind of a lackluster week, but it is college football. There will be college football on, and I'm sure every bit of it will be assumed by everyone. I know we will for sure. The main game we are here to talk about for week 0 is Florida State, Georgia Tech. Florida State comes in with a completely revamped offense. Their defense is revamped as well. Quarterback goes to DJ. I don't even want to attempt to say his last name.
Ugalele.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know.
He comes in at the helm, taking over what was a prominent offense last year. I can't remember the exact amount that they lost offensive wise. I know they lost, of course, their quarterback, their running back. I think they got a majority of their receivers back. They do still have the Louisiana kid. What is it? Jai Douglas or Kai Douglas? One of those. He's from the Homa area, so that's how I know him. I covered him whenever I was with my buddy Cole at HCB. He's still at wideout for them, and he's a dangerous weapon when as a returner and a wideout, so he'll be something to look at for sure. Going into this game, I think Florida State's by far the heavy favorite in all of it. In any and everyone you ask of, I think the only thing that stands out to me is Georgia Tech's won 2 of their last 3. But those were, I think it was the 2 that they won in 15 and then 20. And then in 21, they played and FSU won. But I'm leaning towards FSU. I just think it might be a tougher game than FSU is expecting because Georgia Tech does return a lot back on defense. How do you feel about it? Who do you think you got?
I mean, I'm leaning FSU. I think at the end of the day, you're looking at 2 of the best quarterbacks in the conference. Hayes King and DJ are probably going to be the 2 best. Kate Klubnik at Clemson, but I would lean Florida State. I think it's a better program. I think Norvell's got it figured out there. I think they're going to roll out a good defense again. The offense, they got a transfer from LSU, Jalen Brown. He's a speedster. I don't know if it's going to be a pretty win. I think it might be clunky, but I do think Florida State pulls it out. I think they're more athletic and more talented.
Absolutely. And that's what I think, too. I think it's going to be a tougher game than most people are expecting. So it's going to catch people off guard because people are going to be like, hey, wait, who is this Georgia Tech team? And, hey, don't forget the crazy game that Hayes King won against Miami last year.
It's arguably his most notable thing he's done, which
Yeah.
Miami handed him a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is still one of the crazy. I completely forgot about that game until it popped up on my YouTube feed a couple of days ago, and I watched it again. I was like, I completely forgot this happened. Like, this is nuts. And Miami was undefeated at the time.
Miami was sitting in the driver's seat, and that kind of derailed their season. I mean, you're looking at now. Give Hayes King credit. They didn't just he had to make plays to win that game. He shouldn't have had the opportunity to make them, but he did make them. But yeah, Miami was in the driver's seat there, which is kind of what the ACC's been recently. It's like teams sitting in a good spot, and then something happens and it unravels, whether it be, Jordan Travis getting hurt, Florida State, or Miami in the driver's seat and literally gifting a win away.
Absolutely. The ACC is so in shambles, especially with Florida State and Clemson both wanting out. I don't know where that conference is going to stand by the end of the year. I don't know where those teams end up. The SEC has already kind of said, "Hey, we're filled. We're not partaking on taking anymore." So I don't know where they go.
The natural fit would have to be the Big 12 because the Big 12 seems like it's still trying to make a splash, although you're losing everything. Or not losing, you've lost a lot. But you already got footprint in Central Florida.
Yeah.
So you got a team in Orlando, so you're already there.
Yeah, absolutely. What's that put the number to at the Big 12? So Big 12's at what? I think 16 teams now?
Yeah, I think that's going to be more what you're looking at for conferences because the SEC's at 16? The Big Ten's at 16, or are they at 16?
I think so. I believe so.
I think at some point you're going to end up having
it's going to be 3.
It's going to be 3 20-team conferences, and the rest of them and then they're all going to be in the G5, whatever you want to call it. They're going to be conferences, but I think you're going to have 3 of, so that adds another 12 teams to the big one.
Yeah.
So yeah, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Oregon State and Washington State, and then a couple other ones probably bounce up. Liberty kind of seems like a team.
Yeah,
Tulane's going to get involved at some point soon.
absolutely, absolutely. I think Tulane's success has probably been too big for their conference as of late. Not saying they're going to sustain it, but they possibly can, but we'll see. They did lose their head coach, so we'll see how that flows out. Getting into this up and coming season, I'll touch on this, and then I guess I'll lean into what's going on campus around Texas. I mean, let's talk Sark versus ranked teams before we get anything else. It's not a pretty picture. Sark is 17-28 versus ranked teams. Going into the season, we faced 4 ranked teams in number 1 Georgia, number 9 Michigan, number 16 OU, and number 20 A&M. It wins are going to have to start coming. They're going to have to come quick. And not only that, you got to think about that. That Michigan team is an out of conference game. The other 3 games are all in conference, and they're ranked in the top 25, which is it's going to be the norm in the SEC. You're going to be playing ranked teams week in and week out. It's not going to be like it's going to disappear. It's not
Yeah.
going anywhere else. It's going to be there week in and week out. And a lot of people are forgetting, which I'll admit it to myself. I actually forgot about it as well. After this Michigan opener or second week opener next year, we play Ohio State as one of our non-conference games. And then the following year, we get Michigan back. So our non-conference games are always going to be tough. Well, I say that for the next 2 years moving forward, they're still going to be tough. So we're going to be playing ranked teams outside of the conference and then going into a ranked conference. Someone touched on it before, and they said, hey, everything looks great for Texas, but if they drop to Michigan, which is an out of conference game before heading into SEC, that's not going to sit well. It's not going to sit well because Michigan's also on a rebuild. So that game is bigger than ever. I still think Texas is sitting comfortable going into that game. But that's just my, from the success and what Texas has brought back and brought on to campus. Throughout throughout fall ball, we sustained 2 injuries at running back. We lost Jaden back, or not Jaden. Jaden Blue is the actual player now. We lost Baxter. I don't know. Why can't I think of Baxter's first name? CJ Baxter. Sorry.
TJ.
Yeah.
I got you.
We lost CJ Baxter for the season. And then we lost Christian Clark for the season as well. Christian Clark I think he was number 4 on the depth chart, even with Baxter out. So he was number 5 when Baxter was healthy. So we lost 2 running backs there, which is why they finished fall in green jerseys for all running backs, which is understandable because they don't want to take any more risk at that position, or losing anybody else because the depth isn't there. Something I didn't realize until I realized it today. So you can still get kids out of the portal. You realize that, right? I didn't realize that. Kids
Yeah.
there. So if
Yeah.
you need, like, even in season, so say your top wide receiver goes down and you need somebody just to fill depth. If they're in the transfer portal, you can pick them up, no matter, just like free
Yeah.
agency.
So the way the portal works, the window is when you can enter it. Because
Yeah,
technically, if they close that, then you have a bunch of kids who go like it
yeah,
basically eliminates kids from making a horrible mistake and never playing again.
absolutely. I didn't realize that. I honestly was kind of just like, wait, kind of confused. I was like, oh wait, yeah, oh, so no, yeah, it's open. So anybody that is in the portal that's not on a team can be claimed by anyone else, but that team will be giving up a scholarship. So you got to think about that too. That's why Texas hasn't got a running back, pulled a running back from the portal. And then honestly, there aren't really that many big names still left in the portal. There are a few names, few 3-stars, but nothing that jumps out to you. So they wouldn't do that. The main thing with Texas going into this season that I think Texas fans need to realize, and anything else, was last year was last year. It's a new year. We have a new receiving core. We have a new defensive core. Like, we have spots that are being filled, but it's not last year. Xavier Worthy's not walking through that door no more. Isaiah Bond is, so he's got to step up and fill, or Silas Bolden, or Golden. Somebody's got to step up and fill that, or Wingo. Like, there's so many other receivers that got to fill that. He's not coming through that door anymore. He was 1,000-yard receiver for Texas. We don't have that anymore. Now someone else has got to step up and do it. Saying that Texas is reloaded is a bold statement, but saying that they aren't is kind of an understatement as well. They got the number 1 receiver from Alabama, the number 1 receiver that was in the portal in Isaiah Bond. They got the number 9 wide receiver in Silas Bolden, who was a deep threat all year on the West Coast. Washington Golden was unbelievable for Houston while he was there. All didn't have the limited. They had limited stats, not big numbers that jump out there like Xavier Bond did. But they all, I mean, Xavier Worthy did. But they also didn't have the quarterback caliber that they do now. So that changes things too. Where that fits in this offense, we'll see because the game's got to be played. Everything on paper looks a certain way, but until you actually see the game played, it's something else. I think going forward, Texas has a quarterback advantage versus every team they play outside of Georgia.
I
I
would
think
probably agree. I would probably agree with that at this stage.
going in, I think they have the best quarterback outside of Beck. And I'm not saying he's better or they're probably tit for tat on who does what, in my opinion. That's a key factor that I think is going to stand out is the quarterback play. The next big question is, can Texas put games away with the run game without Baxter? Baxter was the starter going into last year. He got hurt, and then Jonathan Brooks was the starter and blew up, drafted into the NFL. But he also got hurt, and then Baxter took over the starting spot again. Baxter was competing with the starting spot with Jaden Blue. Jaden Blue is someone that people are kind of overlooking. He was a 5-star before his senior year of high school, which he set out his senior year of high school. Once he set out that year, he dropped to 4-star. The kid is incredible when he has the ball in his hands. He recorded the fastest play of all of college football as a running back last year. But Xavier Worthy also recorded the fastest play by a wide receiver. So that was crazy too. I keep forgetting that to have those two weapons, to have two of the fastest plays come from your offense is impressive. So that'll have to be filled in as well. The main thing that I get with all of it, with what we got going forward, is I think it's going to depend on Quinn more than anything else. You can't look at it outside. You have to have the quarterback leadership and the quarterback play on the field to win you ball games. Defense is a bit of a worry. We did bring in some transfers out of Arizona State to come in and try to help fill out on the D line. Looks like some of the kids that were already on campus are probably going to fill those spots before them. And Alfred Collins, who's a big name, who looks like he's going to stand up and do his thing, but we'll see how that goes. Linebacker, we lose Jalen Ford, but Anthony Hill goes back to playing linebacker. He was played as an edge rusher more than he was a linebacker last year, so he's playing his true position going into this year, which is probably going to change his game completely. The kid is going to be a stud. Everyone last year was upset that he didn't get as many reps as he should. So I think he'll stand out again this year. And then we have the other Collins. I can't think of his first name. Defensive end. Oh man, he's a freshman All-American.
Yeah.
One of the freshman All-Americans. I can't think of his name offhand, and it's going to drive me nuts. But behind him, so in the preseason All-American list for defense, Alabama didn't have anyone listed. I think it was the first time ever that they didn't have an All-American. LSU's DN was listed as a honorable mention right behind Collins for the same position at DN. I can't think of the guy's name either.
We had a tight end on the list for sure. Trey'Dez Green.
Yeah. This is just defense though. I can't think of it. It was a defensive player to try, but he's a freshman.
On the freshman one,
Freshman All-American.
you're probably looking at either Dom McKinley or Gabe Relaford.
I think it was
two.
I think it was McKinley.
That makes sense. He was a big 5-star, number one player in the state, or number one D lineman in the state of Louisiana. So
yeah. But moving forward, I think Texas is in a good spot. I think they stand out above the rest for me just because of quarterback play. I think the defense will be shored up, but you have to see it. You can have it on paper, you can have it in front of you. I could read off the numbers and everything else, but until you see, its first game, and then I don't think we know what this Texas offense looks like until game 4 or 5. Honestly,
I agree with that.
That's when everything's going to start rolling and everything else. Same thing can be said about the defense. You don't really know until, because I mean, as much as people are underplaying Colorado State, look how good Colorado State looked against Colorado. It's not going to be a pushover and they're not coming in to be a pushover. They're coming in with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah. It's not Youngtown State, right? Like it's a Division One.
Yep.
It's a decent sized program.
Yep. And then the following week, what do we got? We got Michigan. And then after that, then it kind of get to I think we got one more small game before it gets into SEC play, and then it really starts. Then we see what we're about. I'm confident with them, but we'll see. You can be confident on paper and you can be confident in talk, but until the games are played, you kind of don't really know. That's my take on Texas. I'll get your rebuttal on your question marks and try to answer them as best I can.
Yeah, I mean, I give a little take on what I know about Texas and what I think about them real quick. So I think Texas is a playoff team. You know, we'll get to that later, but I think they're a playoff team. I do think there's some big question marks. I'm pretty confident that they'll get answered. I think the question marks start with what you brought up with Sark, right? Like at this point, Sark's trying to prove right now that last year is who he is as a coach and not the previous years. I think he is the coach he was last year, but he still has to prove that. Offense is a question mark. Now I think the biggest, thumbs up you get is you bring back the two most important pieces. You got a quarterback and you bring back one of the best offensive lines in the country. Now outside of that, pretty much every meaningful offensive production is getting replaced. I think you're replacing 5,000 yards of offense on offense, and then you're replacing 35-ish touchdowns, I believe is what the number is. So that's some big numbers to replace. Now, I do think you can, it's not going to be a crazy thing to do. I think you downgrade a little bit at the tight end spot in terms of a vertical threat. I think you probably upgrade there though in terms of a running game, which is what you need this year. I mean, it's not a mystery that that's a room right now that's probably the biggest question mark on that offense. But again, I think Texas does. Now, here's my question for you. The more I look at it, this Michigan game feels very odd because I don't remember last time we've had a national championship winner that people just went, they're not supposed to be good, which is kind of what's happening right now. Like that game really feels like
Almost a trap game.
And especially the Michigan quarterback was Alex Orgy. I think it's his first name. It's Orgy is his last name.
Yeah.
He's a Texas kid,
They
right?
don't. As of right now, Orgy is getting beat out at the quarterback spot.
Whatever, but so that kind of changes my. I mean, he isn't. So
Yeah.
let's say Orgy rolls out. He's a Texas kid.
Yeah.
Also, that game they have nothing to lose, right? They have no. If they win that game, people are like, "Oh my god!" If they lose, people go, "Well, they should have lost. They lost everything."
Yeah.
I think it's. I don't know where you fall on it. It just that one feels trappy. That's how I would put it.
I think after I see week one of what Michigan puts out, it'll be a little bit more able to question. I don't know who they played week one, but the quarterback position, they don't know who's there yet. It's they've the last time I checked on all the notes and all the feeds about what's going on in camp, it's out of Jack Tuttle and Alex Orgy, and they're both playing it to the wire. Everyone thought it was going to be Orgy going forward, but it's out of those two. They're saying that every time Orgy does something good, Jack Tuttle answers it right back, and coaches are just kind of like, okay, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do here? So that's going to be that's a big decision to make going into an early season game like playing Texas. I think the biggest takeaway from the Michigan team is the 18 players that they lose for their team. Not taking away what Texas lost. Texas did lose a bunch. And getting into that, if you look at it, so Texas lost Xavier Worthy, who was a 1,000-yard receiver. We lost A.D. Mitchell, who was I forgot his total numbers at the end of the year, but crazy.
He was a touchdown leader. He was 11 touchdowns.
Yeah, 11 touchdowns, absolutely. Touchdown leader. I think 845 passing yards, which was his start at Texas. His last season at Texas was his best in college football. Beat all the numbers.
Yes.
Came from Georgia, won 2 national championships with Georgia. Came into Texas. Ultimately, seemed like he upgraded at quarterback, got more receptions, more touchdowns, more yardage. Bond's numbers the past 2 seasons at Alabama, very similar to AD's while he was at Georgia. I'm talking very similar. Him going into this season, it'll be his first year with upgrade at quarterback. On my view, I know you're big on Milroe, but I still think Quinn's a better true passer than Milroe. And the focus is going to be more on Bond than anything else. Fun fact about Isaiah Bond, I know you said it. I saw your tweet. You said it earlier. His highs are high and his lows are lows. What are his lows? He had 2 drops last year. That's it. He's only credited.
I think it was how he could become irrelevant in games. I think watching Bond, there was moments where he could become a non-factor. So it wasn't even a question of drops. It was he's
Where is he?
not exactly. It's why is he not, and he's not open. Like he's
Yeah,
just becomes a non-factor in games. And like I said, when he's good though, it's good. But
yeah,
he also goes away sometimes. You're like, I don't, where's this guy? Where
yeah.
I
Like,
haven't heard Bond's name in 2 quarters.
yeah, exactly. Completely understandable. Um, that's where and I'm with you on the same thing on the run front. It depends on what happens in the run game. I think we have the offensive line to kind of determine it. But I think we're gonna lean on Quinn a lot more than we have in the past. So I think we'll be good on there. But we'll see. Like I said, we can say all this and we can bring out our papers and say what we want to say and kind of roll with it. But until we see it, we kind of don't know what they have. I think I answered everything for you as far as Texas wise. Did I, or am I missing
Yeah, I
anything?
think so. Yeah.
All right.
Again,
Well,
we'll see when they roll out. You know, I think they're going to be good. I think they're a
I,
playoff team. I don't know if
I,
they're a top four, but I think they're a playoff team.
and I did do the numbers before I got on as far as what they're adding. So not saying hey because I did see your tweet and you're like hey you can't say and I understand that I kind of agree with it as well. You can't say one team's losing one factor and you're not losing it or just because you replaced it doesn't mean it excludes what you've lost.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, completely agree with that. And I think the statement was Texas loses over 3,000 yards of offense.
5,000. It's a big number.
So it was 5,000. I thought it was three
Yeah,
thousand.
it's like
Uh,
1,800 rushing yards and 20, or it's 1,500 rushing yards and 2,800
Passing.
receiving yards. Yeah.
So what based and this is based off of previous stats. It's not based off of this is what all the athletes that Texas have brought in. They bring in 2,216 yards of total offense just on the new guys alone. So that's just new people in uniform. So that's pretty much half of what they lost. Not saying that that's going to do the deal. It's not. It's going to have to step up. All the numbers are going to have to come up for it to equal anything. But like I said, with AD's numbers, his numbers went up whenever he came with Quinn. I kind of expect the same with Bond. Um, I think Bolden's going to surprise a lot of people, including myself. I think Bolden's getting overlooked a whole hell of a lot, and a lot of people have been coming out of camp talking about his speed and what he's got. We're not saying it's Xavier Worthy speed, but everyone is saying it is something to look out for, including Muhammad, the transfer from Oregon. His exact words were, "If you give him an inch, he's going to take 10 yards because his speed is that." So it's like, okay, oh, okay, we'll see. But that's all we got Texas wise. Let's move on to your LSU Tigers.
Yeah. So with LSU, I think in a lot of very strange ways, LSU and Texas are very similar on paper entering this season. I think the glaring difference is the quarterback position. I think Texas rolls out a guy that's, a Heisman candidate, preseason Heisman type guy. And LSU rolls out a guy who's been on campus a long time, but he's got one start. He's played a decent amount, but he's got one start. I actually think their play styles are very similar. But a lot of LSU's questions on offense are going to have to be answered because, just like we talked about Texas losing a lot, LSU loses arguably more because you lose the quarterback and the Heisman winner. Now, I think we also have some question marks with, I'm a big Brian Kelly guy. I believe Brian Kelly's the right guy. I think he does win a national title at LSU. But he's been doing it a long time now, and at some point he's got to answer the bell and get over the hump. He's been there so many times. He's building a Hall of Fame type career. I think he is a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done, regardless. But he's going to win one, in my opinion. So we'll see what he can do. Now, I do think LSU gets extremely revamped on the defensive end, just simply by adding Bo Davis, Blake Baker, Corey Raymond. Corey Raymond's been lighting it up in the recruiting trails. Just flipped the kid from Texas, a 4-star. Bo Davis, comes over from Texas. Everybody listening to Texas fan is going to know who Bo Davis is. He's
Absolutely.
already leaving it. He's already leaving an impact. There's already sound bites coming out.
Yes.
Uh, and
I told you about one.
yeah,
What was it last week?
get
Him get
yeah. And then you bring Blake Baker over from Missouri, and I don't know if a lot of people realize that Missouri had a top 25 scoring defense last year, and I think LSU's got at least comparable weapons on that side of the ball. So I think, I know LSU's defense was atrocious last year, but you do run out some athletes, including a preseason first team All American and Harold Perkins. He's on both of them. I think he's an AP. He was AP. He's a first team, and I want to say what is the Walter Camp. He was second team. Um, so I think the defensive side of the ball, it's got to get better. I think it will. There's some young guys on the outside that have got to step up. So far out of camp, Ashton Stamps, the cornerback, seems to be taking over the room as the leading cornerback, which is good to hear. You also have a couple Ohio State transfers, that Louisiana kids that it seems like are going to play, and then you got Jordan Gilbert, the safety from Texas A&M, who appears like he's going to play. But LSU also rolls out a five-star at safety that people have kind of forgotten about because he had to play cornerback last year, and Sage Ryan. Now, I know if any LSU fans listening are going to be like, look, hey, Sage Ryan, I get it. He's kind of slow-footed, but he can play. He was a five-star for a reason, and now he's in a system that you got to imagine these coaches are going to get him in the right spots. And then, I think the side of the ball that every LSU fan, including myself, feels confident in is the offensive side. But in reality, that's where you lost everything. You lose two first-round receivers who both look like they're going to be dudes in the NFL. Malik Neighbors looks like the best receiver in the draft, which he should have won the Biletnikoff last year. And I think he's showing it now. And then Brian Thomas Jr.'s already got highlights in Jacksonville. And then you lose the Heisman winner, who was he did it all. He's LSU's, leading rusher. He obviously was the leading passer. He was at times the offense. Now, he did do a lot of it with the receiving core, but, he's the Heisman winner for a reason. He put up crazy numbers. And on paper, we lost a lot in the running back room. LSU still brings back their number one running back. He may not have been the number one on paper, but he was the starter in Josh Williams. He's been the starter now for 2 years. He's back. So you do have a veteran at running back that's been your starter. He's the most reliable pass blocker, ball carrier, catch the ball in the backfield. So Josh Williams, he's an ex-walk-on. Weird. He's not truly – he had scholarship offers elsewhere. And then you roll out Caleb Jackson at running back, who's a big bruiser, Fournette-type back, that kind of size and that kind of running style. I'm not saying he's Fournette. I think he has that upside in his game, but I'm not saying don't expect Leonard Fournette to be. But it's going to be that style of player. It's going to be get downhill, put a shoulder into somebody, and make people feel him. LSU, I think the sneakiest room on LSU's team is the tight end room, right? I think people forgot about Mason Taylor a little bit last year because you have a running quarterback, and that kind of takes away checkdowns. The checkdown becomes his legs. I think Nuss is going to really lean on Mason Taylor. I think Mason Taylor's got a chance to be a first-round tight end. He's a great blocker. He's a legitimate pass catcher. People who don't, if you're not an LSU fan and you're wondering, Mason Taylor's the guy that caught the ball to tie up the game against Alabama 2 years ago, and the guy who caught it to win it. He's also the guy that caught the ball against Florida State his first game ever, and LSU missed the extra point. But he's the guy who caught the ball to get him onto the 1 yard line. Mason Taylor's been a player. He's going to show up. And then right behind him, you got a freshman All-American, preseason All-American, and Trey'Dez Green. So you roll out really good weapons at tight end. Again, similar to Texas, similar to a lot of these teams we talk about. A lot of guys they look great on paper. We got to see it happen before it's like, but there is optimism there. And then the offensive line, LSU rolls out, the best or the second best O-line. It's a very similar O-line to Texas. I do think LSU's a little better at right tackle than Texas. But I think left tackle, it's tick for tack. Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks. And then LSU rolls out pretty much the entire starting O-line, except for you got to change at center, but DJ Chester played a little bit last year, and it appears like that was more of a Charles Turner leave. This guy's going to – if you don't leave, he's going to take the job. And then, going into – I think LSU's schedule is favorable, right? I think, you don't start off with a pushover. You get USC, but you also get USC. They just named a starting quarterback yesterday. I think we all knew it. It was going to be Miller Moss. But you catch them on a completely – they're changing everything also. They got new defensive coordinator. It's they're on paper, LSU and USC are almost identical. So I think you catch them at a good spot. I do think Brian Kelly's a better coach than Lincoln Riley, and I think that's what this ultimately is going to come down to: who's the better coach. And then you kind of catch some teams. You get Ole Miss after they have played a gauntlet. You get Alabama at home. You have to go to A&M. That's going to be a tough one. But then you also get, at the end of the year, you get OU at home. I think LSU is going to really benefit from how the schedule's laid out for them. And I'm confident in what they do. I do think I can see a world where there's some flaws in who they are. But I do think they're going to be drastically better on the defensive end, which is going to be the ultimate. I think they're a top 25 offense and a top 50 defense when it's all settled down.
Got you. I got you. My big question marks about LSU going forward. Their defense is probably their number one. Just because
Oh, yeah.
there's so much that they got to revamp, and I think it's going to take a lot longer than one off season. I do think they made all the right moves coaching wise to get those spots filled. Um, the DBs, because me and you always talk about DBs. We always talk about DBU because LSU and Texas have always both claimed to be it, and neither program has put out put out DB play in a while. So my questions were honestly kind of what you touched on, like who's going to be the safety? Is it going to be Sage Ryan or is it going to be Gilbert? Um, your starting corners, it looked like it was from what I saw. It looks like it's going to be PJ Woodland and Stamps, Ashton Stamps, like you said. And then your other cornerback, your nickel, they're thinking it's going to be Major Burns. Um,
He's at
I'm not,
safety. He's kind of one of those rover players.
yeah, that's what they said too. They said that he kind of played out of position last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was just they kind of put him where they needed him just because he was the best DB on the field, so they kind of put him where he could. And then Sage Ryan and Gilbert are kind of competing for the safety spot. Um, those are my big questions more than anything else. I think Bo's going to make the right adjustments to make the defensive front look good. Perkins, I like Perkins. I've liked Perkins. I told you since SEC media days, and the way he handled himself, and the way that he was talked about, and the way that he talked about, how comfortable he is feeling playing in back in his position that he's used to and accustomed to playing in. So I think they'll be good. It's just the DBs are the question mark for him more than anything else. Um, the defensive line at points, I think y'all have to lean on. I just don't know if y'all will be able to. I think Bama will probably test the defensive line more than anything else. I think opening up, I think USC is going to be the test for the DBs because I think Lincoln is coming in to try to do what he did with Miller Moss in their bowl game and just kind of light it up. I mean, the kid came in and threw 6 touchdown passes, which is unheard of. Just completely lit it up. So I think they're going to try to capitalize on that fire, and they're going to kind of probably look at LSU's DBs as their weak point because it kind of was last year.
You should
Uh,
look at it that way. I mean, that would
yeah,
be the
yeah.
correct way to look at it.
Whether they do it or not and get it done when it's time to get it done, that's the question. My other question to you is week one. It's been an issue for LSU for a while. So now you got USC, but the bigger thing about it is it's Riley going into his third year, Brian Kelly going into his third year. You lose this game, this opening game. Does it put one of these coaches in the hot seat?
Yeah, I think both of them are sitting on a seat right now. They're basically sitting on the stove. The stove's not on yet, but if you lose, and look, I don't think it goes on. I don't think this is a. I think I think it's a hot seat for 2 weeks, right? Because at the end
Yeah,
of the day, this game doesn't really mean anything in terms of who's going
yeah,
to be a playoff team or not. Like, I mean, again, LSU's lost the last 4 home or regular season or openers. The last 2 years, going into like week 8, there's a conversation if LSU can make the playoff, and everybody
yeah.
forgets about it. So it's gonna. Whoever loses, their fan base panic will ensue. Like,
Absolutely.
no matter who it is, panic will ensue. We got to get a new coach. This guy's not the answer. Yada yada yada. So I think it's a 2-week hot seat. And I think as long as they can win the next one that's important, that'll go away.
Gotcha. That was one of my main things. So I look at it, I was like, they're both going into year 3.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's seat's going to get a little warmer if they lose this game. Neutral site game in Vegas for some reason, which I still don't get. I think who was it that said it? I forgot what coach or somebody said Las Vegas or no Big 12's commissioner said he wants to get to Las Vegas as much as possible because it's a capital of football in America. I'm like, what?
I get it. I mean, LSU did the same thing with Florida State. They did 2 neutral sites, one in the Superdome and one in Camping World, I believe it was. So they did these 2 neutral sites that are just in the other team's backyard. It's like this is I don't know how far LA is from Vegas, but it ain't far. It's a drivable trip.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours, I think.
Yeah, so like it's a neutral site. Now, here's one thing I'm not afraid of as an LSU fan that I don't that I think LSU fans need to remember this. The thing USC is not going to bring to the table that Florida State brought. So when you look at these neutral sites and see that comparison, think about this. USC's fans will not travel the way and show up the way that Florida State fans do. Florida State fans show up maybe the best in the country. That fan base shows up everywhere. USC's fan base will not do that. Look,
USC USC's fans don't even show up to their own stadium.
there will be a lot. Now, look, there's going to be a good chunk of maroon and gold in that stadium. It ain't going to be like a Florida State crowd, though. And I think that benefits LSU because I think one thing that LSU is going to do, being that it's in Vegas, so I think LSU travels well. I know there's a couple guys. Shout out to Colada Show. He's been promoting that there's a trip going out there where it's just you pay, you get a ticket, a trip out there. That's sold out already. So
Gee,
that's a bus full of people going. I know multiple people going out there. I think LSU fans are going to travel. I don't think they traveled great last year at the opener. We kind of got hosed. So you played the bowl game at the same stadium. So people were like, we just went there 6 months ago.
yeah.
Like, look at me. Like,
This isn't it. This is not where we want to be yet again.
I think Vegas tickles people, and they go, "I'll go get involved in Vegas for LSU opener," especially because there is a little bit of buzz this year. That Brian Kelly, since he got hired, has always said he circled it. It's not a fan base thing. He circled year three's the year. Now, I don't think he anticipated when he said that year two would have the Heisman winner on it. I don't think
Yeah,
he anticipated that part.
yeah.
But he circled it, so everybody else is on board. So
Yeah. How are you feeling if y'all lose game one?
um
Moving forward.
here's how I feel if we lose game one. I think it's a lot of question marks. So if we go get popped, I'm asking real questions. If we go play a game that we look outmanned on defense and it's a 37-34 game, I have a little bit I go, okay, the side of the ball that we've already got nailed down is going well, and I know the defensive coaches will recruit well. Let's see if we can't figure this thing out through the year. So I think it depends. Now, if we go lay an egg and it's 31-13, I'm
Yeah,
not feeling too hot. But again, if we then roll back out and beat UCLA and South Carolina, 3 weeks later,
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
feeling good. If we get to Ole Miss and we're 4-1, 5-1, whatever it is, I'm feeling good. I'm like,
Yeah,
we're good.
gotcha.
But I actually think I feel really good about LSU going into this game. I didn't last year. I did not. I kept telling myself I felt good, and I didn't. I really do feel like LSU's better than USC on almost every level. I think they're better at the quarterback spot. I think they're better at the receiver position. I think LSU's O line is going to help Nuss out so much because he's just going to have a ton of time.
Yeah,
And also having a guy who's a fifth-year veteran at running back next to him is going to
absolutely.
also be a calming presence with him. A guy who's done it. He's been in big games. He's got big carries in the swamp. He's got
Yeah,
big carries in Bryant Denny. Like he's done. He's been on these big time. So I think LSU wins this game by 2 touchdowns. Is where I
to,
really lean.
to have the confidence of an offensive line with any type of quarterback, especially that's he's newer, but not new to the program. But just to give him more time, especially in a big game on week one, is something you should be confident about because worst comes to worst, you got one of the best offensive lines. All the quarterback. If the quarterback's making bad reads or bad plays, you tell him to exist for 2 seconds to take him one ball
That's
from
it.
his hand to the running back's hands. That's it.
Well, I think that's one thing LSU fans need to remember. You roll out probably the best pass protection group in the country because it's not just the O line. You roll out a running back that's been there, and your tight end's going in his third year as the starter. So you roll out a
and
really
and
cohesive, talented group.
and you hit the nail on the head when you said everybody forgot about Mason Taylor. I completely forgot about it. I didn't remember
Everybody does.
talked about it on the live a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh wait, yeah, they still do have him. He was overlooked because, like you said, you got a running quarterback. He's not going to look at his tight end. He's looking elsewhere. Uh, so I think he'll have a big year for y'all as well. We'll just have to see it get put on paper. I mean, put actually on the field instead of on paper, like we've been saying. Let's get into these college football playoff top fours, and then we'll go down for our top 12 from Will. So these lists, I wanted to do these lists because these will be fun, and we'll kind of hold it against each other moving forward through our podcast and the lives that we do. And just kind of be like, hey man, that's one of your playoff teams. Look how they're performing. Um, exactly. That's why I said. Yeah, that's why I said y'all need to kind of put into it. I put into it a little bit. I probably could have put in a little bit more. But I'll let you go first on this one since I went first on the team leads. We'll go you first on top four.
So this was hard because every team I wanted to put, I went, well, I don't know if they'll beat this team. This is where it gets hard with the 12 team, right? So I think my number one, I think Georgia ends up coming out of this thing. I think just I'm not doing what what I did with Saban for so many years with Kirby Smart. Until he proves to me he ain't the guy, I'm going to keep him on the top of the mountain. So he go. Then I got Ohio State there. I think this year works out great for them. They're freakishly loaded with talent. They got a question mark at quarterback with Will Howard, but I do think Will Howard's good enough with the rest of the weapons they have. On top of them, Michigan's been their Achilles heel. That's been Ryan Day's Achilles heel. He catches Michigan on the year you want to catch him on when you're also maybe the most loaded team you've had. So I think Ohio State's my two. This is where it got weird for me, right? I think Texas is my three. I do. And I think they're one loss this year. I think they lose to Georgia. I do. I think they lose to Georgia in the regular season. I think they're the three. I know that would put them again playing in the SEC title. I haven't gotten that far, so we'll just leave it as this is
Yeah,
how I got it today.
yeah, guys. No, I completely
And
understand.
then I've got the Big Ten in a very similar situation as I do the SEC. I think Oregon's the four. Because I think Oregon is going to clearly be the second best team in the Big Ten. So I got Oregon as my four. And again, I think it's Dan Lanning has showed a lot that he's a really good coach. They did play really physical last year, which is something that we never really saw in the West Coast. And they lost Bo Nix. I actually think they upgraded in terms of a pass thrower. I think, before the sticks Nix is gone, Gabriel can throw it down the field. And then what you lost is like you look at it and go, well, you lost this crazy veteran player in Bo Nix. Well, you replaced him with a guy that's going to break his record this year. Dylan
Yeah,
Gabriel is going to have more career starts than Bo Nix by the end of the season. So
yeah.
you really don't lose the veteran leadership that he had. So I got Oregon sitting there, and I just think that they're also sneakily really, really talented. So that would be my top four: Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon.
Got you. I will have to look into it more in depth. I do think they did change it to where you can't have two.
Oh,
So
whatever.
that would change your picks. Because I
That's still
know
my
for
top four.
no, I got you. No, I got you. Yeah, I got you. For the longest time, I was on the same boat as you too. I was on kind of on that route. But my four are a little different. So I got Ohio State at number one. I think going into the playoffs, Ohio State's the only undefeated team going into the playoffs.
Okay.
I think they have the talent. I think that, like you said, they're going to catch Michigan on a down year, and I think they're going to kind of go in there looking invincible. At number two, I have Texas coming in. I have Texas at two, but I do have us with a loss. I do have us losing to the regular season game against Georgia, but I do have us beating Georgia in the SEC championship. That's why it gives us the number two spot. Uh, at number three, I got somebody coming from the ACC that people kind of forgot about. And I think he's going to kind of put his stamp down and say, "Hey, you forgot about me." I think Cade Klubnik and I think Clemson Tigers and Dabo says, "Hey, we're still here. We're still hanging around. We still returned a lot of people back on our offense. We still returned a lot of people back on our defense. We're still a team to be talked about." So I got Clemson at three. Uh, Number four, I got coming in from the mighty Big 12. I got Utah. I think Utah's success is actually going to start to pay off even more so in the Big 12, because I just think they're going to be. I think their toughest competition is going to be Oklahoma State, but I think with what they bring back at quarterback, they're going to be hard to beat. Um, I just think I think they're a dangerous team. I think they are a super dangerous team. I do think they might drop a game, but I think they clean everything up and they just kind of run the table after that, and they win the Big 12, and that's why they're sitting there. Now let's break down the 5 to 12. You want to go? Or you want me to go?
I can go.
All right, go ahead.
So I got Notre Dame at 5. I just think that their schedule's not. I mean, we looked at it not long ago. Their
Yeah,
schedule is not.
it's
It.
outside.
I don't want to call it a cakewalk, but it definitely ain't a gauntlet.
No, outside of I think what FSU and I think maybe one other team is going to be a tough game. I think FSU, UFC, and Notre Dame. That's it. That's their three big games.
Yeah,
So they open at Notre Dame. They play FSU and USC later in the year. So they have three big games. Outside of that, they play like Army, Navy, and a few smaller schools.
and I think they lose to USC late. But I got them at 5. My 6th team, and this is sheerly based on just it's an optimistic view of it. It's based on the schedule that they're going to play. And I think I had LSU at 6. I just think they're going to better get through that schedule. I think they're going to put themselves in a situation entering that Oklahoma game at the end of the year where LSU is going to be sitting, with 1 or 2 losses right there, with everything in front of them. And then at 7, I got Florida State. And I got Florida State. I just think I'm a Mike Norvell believer. Last year you lose your quarterback, the season kind of unravels, and they still figure out a way to go to Florida and win and beat Louisville in the ACC title. I think he can do it. I think DJ is going to be an okay quarterback there. I think that then I got Oklahoma State at 8. I think just Ollie Gordon's so good. Bowman's been playing college football for 47 years. And
Seventh,
ultimately,
seventh year of football.
yeah, my biggest reason, honestly, is they lose their 2 biggest games on their schedule. Like you don't have Oklahoma. Oklahoma ran away from them. I think, and they just consistently, like people forget, he just wins 9-10 games every year, and I think they'll be like in that 10-win range, and I think that they'll compete to win the Big 12. And then the team at 9 is the team I think they're going to compete in the Big 12 with. I got Utah sitting there at 9. It'd be my similar reason. I think Utah shows up and plays a style of football the Big 12 hasn't really seen. The only team I think that plays that style even remotely is Oklahoma State. And again, the big dogs are out of the Big 12. You got to get
Yeah.
some new big dogs, and I think these 2 teams are primed to take those spots. Then I got at 10, which is kind of where they finish every year. I got Penn State. I think Penn State's going to win every game they should win, and they're going to lose the games that you think they would be considered an upset. So I think they just exactly what they are every year.
Which is why we hated them last year.
They're just this is what they are. I think they can almost stamp we're going to be in the back end of the 12-team playoff year in and year out.
We're gonna go. We're gonna go into Oklahoma. We're gonna go into Ohio State and Michigan, where everyone thinks we're gonna upset them, and we're gonna lose. That's.
And then I got my 11, similar to what you had high. So same team. I got Clemson. I think they're kind of get a little bit of the Michigan push right now, where everybody's kind of just been like, Clemson's days are done, which I think they are, but I don't think they're. I think they could be the 11th best team in the country at that point.
Yeah.
And then my 12, which I think is the best G5 job in the country. I think if you look it up, a lot of people would tell you this. I got Liberty.
Oh.
I think Liberty's the best group of 5 job in the country. They pay it like a power 5 job. They get talent. The only thing that's difficult is it is a really strict Christian school from my understanding. But it hasn't really slowed them down because they were good 2 years. Like they've been good. They do lose their number 1 receiver. He's at LSU now. But I think that they're going to be – and they bring their quarterback back. I got them as – they're going to be
it was a hell of a weapon for him last year too.
Yeah, I think I got that's how, and I got Liberty getting in there at 12, and that's
I got you. I got you. All right. So my 5 from 12. So at 5, I got coming in strong. The Georgia Bulldogs. I think their only loss comes to Texas in the SEC championship. Um, that's it. I think other than that, they run the table. Well, no, actually, I have them with 2 losses. I have them losing to Alabama in a close one, but then I have them losing to Texas in the SEC championship. Um, number 6, I got another SEC team. I got Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss has so much talent, and I think Lane finally puts it together. I think they finally put it together, and everything rolls. I do have them dropping a close one to LSU though. Number 7, Notre Dame. I think their schedule. I couldn't put them any higher or lower based on their schedule, just because I think they kind of got an easy walk to the playoff. They don't really play anybody, but I guess when you're independent, you get that. At number 8, I got Oregon. Um, I think their quarterback play, like he says, kind of helps them out. Their defense is pretty good too. Their defense isn't anything to be stout about. I just think they have issues in the Big Ten and they can't get past Ohio State, and I think they may have some struggles with Penn State in the long run, but they ended up winning it. But they don't look pretty enough to be sitting in the top 4. Number 7, I got Bama at 7. Um, I think Miro has his best year because DeBoer is a quarterback's coach. He makes quarterbacks 10 times better when they're with him, and I think that's what he's going to do with Milrow. And I think Bama's setting in at 7. At 9. Wow, I almost way off. Coming in at 10, I got OK State. I think Ollie Gordon has a phenomenal year. We'll get into that year more going on when we pick our other picks that we got coming up. But I think Mike Gundy is hard to beat. Period. Mike Gundy is a great ball coach,
just
and
win, just wins.
we've been saying it for a while now. The dude knows how to win. He wins games in and out. He wins tough games. He wins hard games. Um, he just wins games. I think his worst showing was the Big 12 championship this past year. But other than that, the dude's looked spectacular in any and every game that he's played. Number 11, I got Penn State coming in. Penn State's same view as you as Penn State. They're going to win the games they're supposed to win. The games that are overhyped to upset, they're going to lose. Me and you were so big on Penn State beating Ohio State that week, and then they lost. And then we were big on beating Michigan that week, and then they lost. And it was just
Yeah,
like,
it's
and your exact words were, he goes, "This is Penn." Your exact words then were, and this was last year. Your exact words were, "This is Penn State.
that's what they do.
This is Penn. This is Penn State. They win all the games they're supposed to and look
Mm-hmm.
great, and then the games that everyone has them picked to win, they fumble the bag." And that's exactly what they've done. My number 12, so it's going to be Power 5. It came out of 2. And then it came out to my final pick of what they got returning. And it was out of the 2 that it was out of Boise State and App State to get
Ooh,
the Power
State.
5.
I like App State.
Boise State's going to get the last spot. Boise State returns more players than any other college football team in the nation. Fun fact, though, their starting quarterback is
Is at
not.
Arkansas.
Yeah, no, their starting quarterback is not the guy that was
Oh yeah, it's
the 5-star that was supposed to replace Caleb Williams.
Malachi Nelson is no longer going to be.
He
He's
is
not the
not
starter.
the starter. He is not the starter. But they return so much on offense and defense. They return the most in the country. So I think they're going to walk through the Power 5. They have a very favorable schedule that they'll do it with ease. But keynote on that was the Malachi not being the starter was to me. Now we'll get to our Heisman pick, and then I think we'll close it out after that. If
I'll
it's
give you.
good with
I'll give you my top 4 that are the
you. Okay.
conference champions. I'll go
Okay.
Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State, Oklahoma State.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. That works for me. Let me make sure I mark that down. Got it. All right, let's get to our Heisman picks. And these, so I don't know people that are tuning in and watching this that have been with our TikTok from day one when we started this a year ago. We've kind of been dilly dallying with picks and stuff like that. These are going to be our picks that y'all can hold us accountable for. So if something happens, y'all could be like, hey, look, you said this. Go back to podcast on that y'all been meaning to put out for a while. This is what you said. So my Heisman pick for this Heisman year, it's not gonna be a quarterback, man. I think Ollie Gordon's gonna win it this year. I think Ollie Gordon ends the streak. I think Ollie Gordon has a phenomenal year. I think Gundy is set to coming into last year. They didn't know Ollie Gordon was Ollie Gordon until like game 3.
I knew him before they did, I think.
Yes, you have been talking about it since game 2.
I watched that
Literally,
dude play. I watched that dude play in week 2, and I went, hold up.
yes.
This cat is special. This
As
dude
soon
is
as we
different.
as soon as we started it, as soon as we started our live, the all I heard was Ollie Gordon, Ollie Gordon. Before the media got on the hype train, before anybody else, you were like, and your exact words where you go, I don't know why I was watching them play, but I was watching this kid, and this kid is it. You were like,
I was
is.
like, he is a dude. He is good at everything.
I'll never forget it because your exact words were, I don't know why I was watching Oklahoma State. You're like, but I was watching them, and this dude, he's like, this dude is it. And then, boom, week after week, constantly produced, constantly produced. I think the biggest knock on Ollie is he's gonna have to do it in the bigger games. So he kind of got shut out in the Texas game. I think he had like 35 yards. Other than that, he performed every time he had the ball in his hand, and the ball's gonna be in his hands constantly this year.
A ton.
So that's who I think my Heisman pick is. Who do you got?
So if you're coming from TikTok, you should know my Heisman pick. I'm dead set on this. It's the most confident. It's the thing I'm most confident about in the college football season. I think the Heisman winner is Jalen Milroe, and I think he's the Heisman winner due to a few things. I think one, DeBoer is, I think DeBoer is going to get the best out of him. I also think Jalen Milroe has the most to prove. I think everybody claims he's just a runner. I think people forget how good of a passer he turned out to be last year and how many big throws he made. I think the Auburn game gets highlighted. That was a dot he threw. But I think he did it throughout the year. He progressed as a passer. We already know what he is as a runner. He's one of the most likable guys in college football. So that leads me to believe that he's an incredible leader of that team. I think he comes out this year and is head and shoulders. I think by week 9, it's his trophy to lose at that point. I think he just has a great year. I think he lights it up. To me, Jalen Milroe, and it's who's competing for second.
And what I love about that is when you first started saying Milroe, you're like, I hate to say it. You're like,
I
I
do.
want to.
I do.
You're,
Trust me, I
you're
do.
like, you're like, I want to dislike this guy so much, but I can't. He's like, there's nothing about him that I can't not like about him. He's like, from his personality to his gameplay, I can't not like the kid.
And I want to make one thing clear. This is not this because people are going to do this. Oh, they'll be like, "Oh, bro, been playing NCAA 25, and this ain't got nothing to do with that." This is I've been saying this since last year. Just because I think the Heisman sometimes falls into a grouping of guys who's got the most to prove, right? Like I think what Beck and Ewers are. I think they're looking more. They're already going to be first round picks. They need to do well and win. I think Milroe's still playing to try to be a first round pick. I don't think at this rate he's a first rounder.
Yeah.
So he's got the most to prove. He's got to prove he's an elite quarterback, not just an elite weapon. I think he does it.
Yeah. I can understand it. Whenever you first said that pickleball, I honestly thought you might have changed it. I was like, he might change it. It might not. It might not be there for the podcast. We'll
No,
see.
I'm dead set on it.
Uh, but hey, look, guys, look, we're gonna close it out. This is our first one, man. First episode 1 of the podcast. Me and Booda started this over almost coming up onto a year in October. So Red River Rivalry, the Red River Shootout, will be our literally 1 year anniversary of First and 12 Ounces. When we started doing this, and we started off with the Texas loss. How about that? And hey, we're still rolling. We finally got the podcast rolling. Took us long enough to do it, but hey, what better time to start it than when the season's popped off? I'm glad we got it going. We're going to keep it rolling. We're going to continue with our lives as always. We're going to get these out to y'all as soon as possible. We got to get a scheduled date of getting those recorded out and getting them to y'all. We'll have fun with it. And I mean, honestly, that's all I got for y'all for episode 1. Buddha, what you got for them?
Nah, just about time we got this thing rolling. I mean, it took us long enough to thank y'all, everybody watching. Thank y'all for even making this a possibility. First of all, I mean, Just started
Absolutely.
on a whim. We were both, I would say, a little out of mind. It was after the Red River game, after LSU had upset Missouri on a defensive play. So I was definitely kind of in a different realm. Uh, but yeah, I mean, we'll definitely still keep the weekly lives going, as much as we can. I think definitely we can probably confirm that Fridays will still be a thing, whether it's the whole group or us two or just Pete or whatever. Because that's
Yes,
the fun one, and that's we're gonna, especially with season here, we're gonna really get that thing going. But we really come check this out. This is where the meat and potatoes would be. This is where the actual insight, what we think about. This is where you're going to get a lot of the meat and potatoes of what we got to think about in the college football season as it progresses.
absolutely, absolutely. This will be our main staple going forward. We're still gonna do, like I said, like Buddha said, Fridays will still be our lives. We'll still have fun with it. We'll still get in with y'all, get in the chat and everything else. But time to transition, time to grow a little bit bigger and have fun. Uh, y'all made it this way. We thank y'all for it, and we'll keep it rolling. That's all I got for y'all. I think Buddha's done as well. We'll see y'all on Friday. Buddha does have prior obligations, but hey, we'll make it happen. We'll have fun, and we'll keep it rolling. Y'all have a good one. Hook 'em.